Before we get our meeting started today, I'd like to have Commissioner Lowry lead us in the pledge of allegiance, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Hoffman to say a prayer for us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we just ask for your guidance, your wisdom in all things that come before us today. We ask that we would listen to you when we make the decisions that need to be made. In Christ's name we ask it. Amen.
Amen. I now call this order of the Fort St. Joseph City Commission to order. I'd like to take care of a little personal business before we actually get started, and just ask for a moment of silence for Commissioner Lowry. He lost his grandmother, the great Mr. Cannonball's wife. So let's just have one moment of silence and say a prayer to yourself, his family. Amen. His grandfather, Mr. Cannonball, was quite a man, and his grandmother was quite a woman. She was. All right. This meeting started today. We have a consent agenda. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a motion. Have a second.
Second.
Have a second. Any opposition to the motion? Motion carries 5-0. Building department update.
Mayor, I think that we asked them to provide us with an email. Is that correct, Jim?
Yes, sir. There's
Okay,
a
so
sheet in
there's
there.
nobody here today.
Yes, sir.
That's
The
fine.
last request we had was for them to give you an update since the last meeting, so where they gave you a sheet showing all the permits since your last regular commission meeting.
Okay. Fort St. Joe redevelopment. Dave, you have something for us?
Yeah, we didn't have a quorum this afternoon, Mayor, so Mr. Kennedy wanted me to get with you guys and come up with a date that we can meet. It sounds like everyone's got a lot of vacations going on, so if we can just give our availability schedule to either Bill or Jim, we'll try to find a time to meet. One of the concerns was the restroom on Reed Avenue. We're running into a little bit of resistance. The building department is asking us to build it, have the toilets above the flood grade. And with the new changes to the maps, it is now not going to work with our current plan that we have. And so it may be cost prohibitive going forward, but we've asked for our city engineer to get with Mr. Kennedy and try to figure that out. That's all I have.
All right. All right, Mr. Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 1, boat dockage agreement. At this time, I know, I believe Mr. Patrick Murphy, a representative from St. Joe Companies here, is that correct? I see him in the audience, and is willing to address this commission regarding the concerns of that boat dockage agreement, if the commission so inclined.
I have one question for you. Did we work on the length of the contract if we entered into an agreement? I know that was a big concern we had.
My understanding from legal from St. Joe Company is that they have agreed to December of 2020.
The end of December 2020.
Yes. I don't know that I talked to her about a specific day, but I know the month was December 2020. But whether that's the 31st or 1st.
And I think, I know I believe we've all met individually with Patrick. But is there any other concerns as far as that goes? I mean, the length, I know the length of the lease was one of the main issues.
Yeah, no, I had done a redraft just on my own without input from the commissioner, St. Joe, or anybody of the previous license agreement, which was provided. And the previous license agreement allowed, from my memory, 4 boats. St. Joe's informed me that they're willing to run the license agreement till December of 2020. And I couldn't say that St. Joe's in agreement with all my revisions, but it sounded like there was very few objections.
What do you need
And
from
my
us?
intent with the revisions I made was just to try to make it more fair for both sides.
What do you need from us today? Is this something that you want to continue working? I don't see a contract in front of us. If we just authorized you to work with the St. Joe Company on coming up with an agreement, with that?
If I had some parameters from the commission, that's my biggest issue right now, is I don't know what the commission wants. So it's me, being blindfolded throwing darts at a dartboard. So if the commission tells me, that it wants, 4 boats, an agreement till December of 2020, then I think that I can have a proposed agreement before this board by the next meeting. And most likely an agreement which St. Joe's will pre-approve, or at least tangentially approve before that meeting, based off my discussion with their council yesterday, after she called me.
Well, if you're looking for input from the commissioners today, my input will be, I'll share with you what I shared with Patrick. We can have an agreement in the form of a hold harmless agreement, but I'm not going to support any kind of lease with any kind of deadline. I feel that we don't have to have a lease agreement to utilize bulkhead. Now, I will say that I felt that the St. Joe Company was more than willing at this point, currently, to work with the city, coming up with some kind of agreement. And I look forward to hearing what Patrick has to say. But my input has always been that we're not going to go into a time-restricted agreement to do what we want to do with the city property.
Yes, sir, and I work for the pleasure of the commission, so
Right.
once I have a directive, that's
Yeah.
what I'll do. At this point, I have no directive, so I've got to be told to do something.
Right, and for what it's worth, that's where I'm at on it, is we'll agree and sign a hold harmless agreement in case we tear something up and be on us, but I'm not in the posture of asking for a lease agreement that has a time frame involved.
I feel a little bit different because at some point, they're gonna have to make decisions down there on what they're gonna do moving forward in rebuilding that marina. So I would completely understand the reason why they would want a timeline on this thing.
Well, my concern is,
Personal opinion.
the minute that we sign that agreement, it puts us in a position where it allows them to argue that we have to sign the agreement. I'm just kind of trying to safeguard the city from getting in a posture where, if we had a 1-year agreement and that 1 year goes away, and we then have to acknowledge that we have to have their permission to moor up 4 boats on our own bulkhead. That's my main concern. And I told Patrick that I understood if they needed to get a big barge in there, there may be some times where we have to move those boats out of the way and work with them. We are planning to be good neighbors and good partners, but I'm not comfortable with signing a lease agreement for the bulkhead that's owned by the city.
Anybody else?
My big issue is the timeline, the length of the agreement.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Ashbrook. I don't mind dealing with a lease, but I think it should be a few more years on it, because you never know what's going to happen. What Commissioner Hawkins said was absolutely on point. Because we were thinking about not thinking about signing a lease because you never know what's going to happen. But I feel like I'm willing to work with the St. Joe Company and at least meet them halfway where we can move forward with this.
But to probably tie some extensions to it or something.
The time frame is the only thing that I think is very important.
So at this point, there's nothing to do.
Well, if the commission's asking for a longer amount of time than December 2020, then I'd like to know what that is, how many votes. Is the commission as a whole inclined to sign an agreement, or are they inclined to follow Mr. Hoffman's desire? It's hard for me, without having some explicit direction, to guess at what this commission wants.
I think all of us up here, maybe minus one, are, I think, okay with the date on it. I think that you should work for what Commissioner Hoffman has been expressing as his concern with the company, but whatever you guys come to an agreement, bring that back to us and we'll just put it to a vote. is kind of the way that I see it. Just work with their legal counsel and come back with an agreement. Right now, we're just talking about a wish list, and now you have a little bit of direction, I think.
I just think, extra time is my main concern, you know. We get more than almost, what's it again, about 5, 6 months? 18 months. Yeah.
Tommy?
I'll work on that with St. Joe, see if I extend it, and I'll bring something for the commission to vote up or down.
You got anything else on with that?
Someone raise their hand in the back. Does anybody want to come up and speak about this, about the boat?
We just can't hear what's going on.
Huh?
We can't hear what's going on.
All right, we'll get a little closer and you can hear them, right? Well, what we're talking about now is down at Clifford Sims Park, about boats coming in and out of there and docking up on the city side, inside the marina area, but the city owns the land there. So that is really what we're talking about right now. And I don't think there's anything we can do about that right at this moment, other than allow our attorney to continue talking to the St. Joe Corporation and seeing what we can come up with as far as a fair deal for everybody, for some of the boat captains and all parking their boats in there, the Fishing Express. You know, at one time, St. Joe Company had an expression they didn't want them in there, but I don't think now they're allowing to let us put them there. So that is what we're talking about right at the moment. And I don't know if there's any other action that needs to be done at this time.
Well,
You need to vote on giving you,
No, sir, I can take the direction given today, and I'll bring back.
yeah. I think that's what we would all want to do, is just,
And I'll confer with St. Joe before I bring it back, and see where they are, to at least try to eliminate one half of the side, so the commission can make a decision.
okay?
Well, right now, I think we need to remind ourselves that we are working under a motion that was made by me and supported by unanimous. I may not have been unanimous, I don't remember if anybody voted against it, but that was to move forward in docking the 4 boats. And we're still gonna move forward in that. Hopefully, we could have some kind of more partnership with the company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
Mr.
we need-
Hoffman, I'm not trying to suggest I usurp that vote in the motion you made, just try to take direction. In that direction, I can go to work.
And I'm not holding you at fault in any of this. I'm just reminding the other parties involved that that's where we are today. So until a different agreement is looked at and signed by both parties, the city's going to move forward in the plans that we've already voted on.
Sure.
Understood.
I think we need something in line come next meeting, so we can,
I'll do my best to bring a proposal for the commission to consider and make an up, down vote on.
And guys, we do have a representative here from the company. If you wish to speak, I'd like to get this relationship where we're partnering together, not always butting heads. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
Hey, I'm Patrick Murphy with the St. Joe Company, and no, I think I came down in good faith last year to try to meet with everybody and understand that we're not here to figure out who's right or wrong in here. We're trying to find a compromise, because for us, we're the same way. We want people back working and back fishing. I don't think we didn't want the Fishing Express ever there. I think what we were trying to do was, we still have a marina to clean up, so we're still trying to make sure that we're cleaning up a marina, and then, to be honest with you, our #1 goal is to build back as fast as we can. So we're trying to make sure that as we move forward, we support Port St. Joe and getting people back to work, and in the same sense, we think getting the marina back open as fast as we can is as important as anything we can do. So that's kind of where we are, and we're willing to work on. I don't think as a company we're bothered by a timeline that much. I think we want to make sure that we understand that St. Joe does own the marina itself, and the city does own the bulkhead, and we're trying to make sure that we're covering ourselves and the marina's covering themselves, and together, as I came down and said the other day, I don't think there's any reason we can't come up with a partnership. We're not trying to, we don't want any money for any boats being there, we just want people to get back to work and do everything we can. So we appreciate you considering it, and we'll work together on it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Murphy, would you
Yes.
please sign in on that?
Yes, sign in, please.
Thank you, sir.
See, it sounds like they're okay with no time frame.
So long as the marina's not open back up, I mean, you know, we want to make sure that if we have a time frame, what we don't want is boats there in a marina operating at the same time. So I think we can work through that. I think that's something that, I think that's a pretty easy compromise myself, so.
All right, thank you.
If the commission has no other discussion on that, I'll move to the, if the commission has no other discussion on that item, I'll move to the next.
Okay.
Listed item. That would be ordinance 550, golf cart ordinance. The proposals for a second reading of this ordinance, which would adopt this ordinance for the city of Port St. Joe. I would need, if the commission so inclined, I would need a motion for approval of the second reading.
Motion for a reading on ordinance 550.
We have a motion and we have a second.
Ordinance number 550, an ordinance of the city of Port St. Joe, Florida, authorizing the use of golf carts upon designated municipal streets subject to specified restrictions, providing for conflict and severability, providing for repeal of all previous ordinances related to golf cart use upon designated streets, and providing an effective date.
Motion to adopt.
We have a motion,
Second.
we have a second. Any opposition to the motion? Motion carries 5-0.
Therefore, ordinance 550 is adopted. Moving on to the next items, and
Could we hold 1 second?
yes, sir.
You know, we've made that motion to adopt this, but I just wanted to say that yesterday, I had a man call me and said over by the old hospital area, there were 3 kids in a golf cart. And he said all 3 of them, if you added the ages together, wouldn't be legal drivers. So I'm asking the parents not to let their kids drive these golf carts. I mean, the chief and them have a lot to do other than looking around for golf cart people. But we do have family members that'll just let their kids jump in their golf carts and go where they want to. And I say again, golf cart is a privilege. It can be taken away if people don't adhere to the rules. And since I've been on this board, there's not been too many rules to adhere to. So I just want to make that comment. What else you got?
Moving on next, and I'm going to group them together, ordinance 555 and ordinance 556. City staff has informed me after discussions with the developer and the other municipal meetings that we've had that city staff would recommend continuing this hearing until either July 16th or August 6th. Those 2 days, correct, Mr. Anderson?
Yes, sir, that will be your 2 regular scheduled meetings in July and August.
If I could take the lead on this, well, I was at the meeting with the county meeting and heard the people of Highland View talking. And at this time, I'm going to pass the chair to the mayor pro tem, and I'm going to make a motion. My motion is that we deny the annexation of that property into the city.
We have a motion. We have a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
We have a motion and a second for discussion. You have the floor.
We heard from the people last week, and I would be for, something such as a barefoot cottage type development that's neighboring that property, but I'm not for the density that they want to put there, so my second stands.
And I'll make another comment. We know there's a small piece of property that's already R4 right beside this property. Well, if we vote to let this go forward, you better believe the person owns that property, they're gonna want to put some high rises there. And it's all about money. I can tell you that right now. It's all about people making money. And I don't mind saying that. And I don't mind people making money. But when you have as many people as we have at the county meeting and here again today, people just live there all their life and they don't want it. I realize they can't vote, but you better believe they got a lot of friends in the city that can. And I would urge each and every one of them, if we don't say yes to not allowing this to go, y'all get your friends to vote next time.
Any further discussion?
I want to say something. We had a pretty good workshop with the county, and people came out and we had a pretty good discussion, and they gave us some insight on how they felt. I like it when we had a workshop because they give me a mind of how the people are thinking. But sometimes you have to make decisions that's just not that's good for the city. You know, you're gonna hurt people behind that decision. So right now, I think that we really need some affordable housing, not vacation homes or something like that. So right now, I'm just not ready to vote or make a decision on something so serious about it within our community. So I just need some time to continue to look at some of the things that I need to look at before I make a vote right now. So I recommend that we table it.
Already made a motion.
We've got a motion and a second.
We ain't gonna,
Okay.
ain't no sense in tabling this.
Well,
Is there any more comments?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have something to say.
Are you finished, Commissioner Langston? Go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, we have to remember that what took place at the workshop was two different issues. One was to either approve or deny or discuss. At the time, it was a workshop, couldn't vote on it, but you had to discuss how the city would handle voluntary annexation. And I listened to the people that live in the community of Highland View, and it's clear they're opposed to the development on that site, the proposed development. But I didn't hear people saying they were opposed to a voluntary annexation, because they may make something that the community is comfortable with. And I actually spoke to one of the developers, or the developer, after the meeting, and I called him and I said, you know, are you willing to make some adjustments and listen to the people? Because there was a question that was asked was, did you talk to anybody around the development? And the answer was no. And I think that was a huge mistake. We've made that same mistake since I've been on this commission, and I'll own it. But you learn from your mistakes. So you have two things going on. You have a voluntary annexation request, and then you have a plan to build a certain development. Well, one can be on one side of the issue and the other can be on the other. Now you have to also realize what the county did as commissioners of the county. They voted in a meeting after the workshop to allow their legal their attorney to seek an injunction against the city if we passed and approved the voluntary annexation. Well, that complicated things in my mind. So our legal staff and our city staff, they need the time to look back and find out, are we as solid as I have been told in regards to approving a voluntary annexation? The city of St. Joe is not interested in any way of forcing an annexation to Highland View or to Oak Grove. That's not even been discussed. It's not an issue. If it was, I could understand the concerns. A lot of people don't want to be part of the city, and I get that. Oak Grove, I think, has been very clear in the past. They don't wish to be part of the city, and that's understandable. But at the same time, if you have a piece of land, for whatever reason, they wish to be in the city, then those people, I think, should at least be heard. Well, based on the vote by the county, I think we need to allow our attorney time to research that and find out, is this something that we can win in the end? Because by voting to deny it, both sides of the issue, the annexation and the development, I think that puts us in a bad spot for the future. I think it sets a precedent for the future, saying that we voted no to a voluntary annexation. Then you gotta deal with how will this affect someone that would like to leave the city, de-annex? These things are all being talked about right now in our community. So I don't think we need to rush to judgment and make a motion and vote something as just no when you don't discuss how it affects the future of the city. So I'm in support of a continuance, and I think that's the route that we need to go. A continuance doesn't solve, or it doesn't affect anyone in a negative way. It's not a vote. It's just saying, give us time to research this issue and find out how it can impact the city in the future.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I do. Is Zach out there? Zach Farrell? Who all is in this venture with Zach Farrell? Does anybody know? Because I've been told something, and it could be a rumor, it could be true. Does Mr. Matt Terry have anything to do with this venture? Is he in partners any kind of way with Zach Farrell? The reason I bring that up is Mr. Matt Terry is a nephew of the incoming mayor. Now they know I'm a no vote, so they want to push this thing down the road, so he comes up here, he'll be a yes vote. And I think it stinks. It's the same way some of the businesses have been run in this town. Some people just want to do as they want. They hear things on the street and never even try to confirm if it's true or false. They just go with it. That's not the whole town, but there's some in this town that does that. And I'm saying that we do not need to continue this thing, so the next mayor, whose nephew is involved with this venture, will get a yes.
Is he involved? I thought you were asking a question.
I was told he was.
Hey, can I say something? The reason that I would like for it to be continued is because I need to do some more research on it. It's not because of who is what or whatever, anything like that. I think when you make a decision like this that's important to our community, we need to do some research and figure out what's going on before we just jump and say yes or no. And that's why I feel the way I feel about continuing this this discussion.
I've personally spoken to Mr. Farrell 2 different occasions, and he has said that on both occasions that this project will not work unless he gets the R4 designation. And I'm not even close to allowing that. I mean, I'm at maybe an R2, which is 8 units an acre. So my second's going to stand. I don't want to kick it down the road.
Are there any more comments from commissioners?
Well, I've got one thing to say, is it was just brought up. The question was asked, was a certain person part of the development? And I'm just going to say, we shouldn't be basing our decisions on who the person is developing something. It should be based on, do the people want it? Do they not want it? Is it in code? Is it not in code? Not based on whose name is on the application. And I take offense to that.
I don't disagree.
And I take offense to things being done underhanded at times. So I know they have been done. I'm living proof of it. There's been things said about me were never true.
Mr. Mayor, with all due respect, let's roll. Is there any comments from the audience at this time? Come on up, sir. Please sign in.
Rex was at 101 20th Street.
And before you get started, how many out in the audience are intending to speak on this issue? Oh, we're going to definitely have a 3-minute time limit on these.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just here to comment on Mr. Patterson's comments. I'm disappointed in Bo that he would bring up rumor and innuendo into a discussion in a public body that's being recorded. I don't get involved in my nephew's affairs. I don't have anything to do with any of his affairs. He is a nephew, and that's the end of that. And anybody that knows me and knows how long I've been here and what I stand for, know I'm upfront and totally transparent with everything I do. So, Mr. Patterson, I'm sorry you had to bring up.
I had a phone call, somebody was very
Well,
concerned about it.
that's fine. You
I mean, I
said
didn't
you don't
just-
know if it's
I
true.
didn't make it up, and I said I didn't know if it was true.
Mayor,
You didn't know if it was true, and that's the
Please.
point of you know, that's, you need to stick with the facts and go from there, but, that's all I've got to say.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Come on up, sign in.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Lonnie. I'm from Highland View. Our concern is that we were promised in 2005 and 2015 that there would not be any annexation of Highland View without a vote in Highland View. Now, excuse me, but the city decides to annex property there because the owner wants it. That is not allowing the people in Highland View to have any vote in it. And we don't get to vote for the mayor, we don't get to vote for you guys. And I don't think it's fair for you to take our property that is county, and we chose to live in the county, and run over us with this. There's no way on waterfront property, when there's hundreds of endangered species on that property, that there should be a high rise of any type. And saying Barefoot View is a contingent property, I wouldn't want to walk from one to the other. They are not contingent. I mean, I think that we've been railroaded. Nobody knew until May night, and nobody knew until I went around the night before the last meeting. Nobody did. I mean, I spoke to 40 people, and not one of them had heard that that was going to be brought up in the meeting. That's all I had to say.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, come on up.
Christy McElroy, Port St. Joe, Woodward Avenue. I think this is a bigger issue here. And it's how will our community be built out? I think these people in Highland View have every right to be nervous and worried about their investment, just like our neighborhood is worried about our investment. And that's why we filed a lawsuit against the city and the county, because we were not allowed to be a part of a process and be on committees for a sports complex. And I'm glad to hear that people are learning from that. I wish that we could unring a bell, but unfortunately we cannot. There are going to be developers that come into this city and this county that want to push the envelope. That's the American way. You look back in history, you look at the gold rush, you look at towns being developed, you look at a place like New York City. There was a reason Central Park was put in, and that was because they needed green space, because people were getting too heated up and it was too congested. We should learn from history. We should listen to the citizens. We should listen to the people that have made investments into these neighborhoods. But in all fairness, this project did go before the planning board. So everyone knew that it was going forward. I got the minutes from that, and it was a 5-0. And so people should have been at least forewarned of a project of this magnitude and this kind of density and this kind of congestion. That's what we should all worry about. I grew up in Panama City. We had a cottage out on the beach. I've seen how that area has drastically changed, and not necessarily for the better, if what you're looking for is less congestion, less density, not trying to inhibit someone from making money and having a great plan, But we need people in place that have vision and have the care of the city, the county, the residents that are here, and the people that want to come in, and why do they want to come here? If it's all about them just making money, then they need to go somewhere else. If it's about building a sense of community, whether it's out on the beach, in Highland View, on Woodward Avenue, or anywhere else.
I make a motion, we give her another 3 minutes.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. Okay.
We need to, and I won't take 3 minutes, I'm saying what I need to say, but we also do have an interlocal agreement. And Mr. Hammond brought up, we've got an interlocal agreement that was signed in 2013. And you cannot take parts and pieces of that interlocal agreement. And part of that interlocal agreement involves us on Woodward Avenue, and the county and the city agreeing that you would collaborate together and build a Field of Dreams sports complex. So I agree with Mr. Hammond. You cannot take apart an interlocal agreement and decide which pieces you want and which pieces you don't. Let's think better. We're better than this. We're better than this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience? Come on up, sir.
How you doing?
All right.
Hey, I got a couple questions here I want to ask, and I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget half of it. I'd just like to know why this board believes they shouldn't have to abide by that agreement set in 2005 between the county and the city on this issue right here.
Anybody on the board want to address?
There seems to be two different opinions on the agreement.
Between the city and
The city and the county, yeah, the city attorney, city staff, and the county commissioners, the county administrator, and the county attorney. There's obviously two ways of looking at the agreement, and I don't know who's correct at this point. I would like to argue that the city is correct, and I'm sure the county wants to argue that they're correct.
All of you wants to too.
Well, absolutely, I get that, and that's why I'm thinking that it's pretty important to understand who is correct, and that's what I'm asking for, is the time to figure out who is right, who is wrong.
Well, it pretty well spells itself out.
Well,
When you read it, the only way it can be done is these people from Highland View get to vote on
well, and that's the part that the disagreement lies, right
it.
there.
And another thing is, why don't they have a say to begin with? Highland View. I mean, ain't nobody talking to nobody, ain't nobody, that you hear it from in the paper or whatever, you know, but ain't nobody come along here and he's gonna do wonders out there. What's gonna happen, it's gonna be bad. And I can tell you right now, if you took a referendum on it right now, I would be willing to bet you 10-1 that it would be defeated.
Well, and that's another part that I'm not even clear on. If it was a referendum, who gets to vote? Is it the city?
Where it's going.
You know, is it the whole county? You
I would
know,
think the people in Highland View that look concerned. Or maybe look at it like as a property owner. They pay taxes there. But we just don't think it needs to go there. And I would appreciate it, and everybody else in Highland View would, that we just nip this thing in the bud. They got a motion on the table, and I'd much like to see it just be done. That's all I have to say right now.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Think of something else.
Anybody else? Come on up, sir.
afternoon, Commissioners. Jeremy Novak, Gulf County Attorney. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all. Listening to the comments today, I'm here today for several points, obviously, but these two ordinances that have been introduced to you all for your second reading. You all were at the same meetings that I've been at, and you know that I've been charged with the responsibility on behalf of the county commissioners to see which way this goes, and then they've authorized by unanimous vote last week following your workshop with the residents of Highland View to commence with appropriate action. And I've listened to the discussion today. Obviously, the five of you gentlemen have a difficult decision, an immense responsibility. The only thing that I would come today to say is, obviously in review, and I've discussed it with your legal counsel, and I've expressed some of my legal concerns with him, so that there is that dialogue that the commissioner is speaking to. And Mr. Kelly hit it right on the head, which is why doesn't Highland View have a voice? And if you look at the law and the statute, which obviously will be examined and brought through over the next month, is the folks in Highland View don't. They don't have standing in court. And I think it's a very important point, because the county commissioners right now are charged with the responsibility to voice the opinions of Highland View. Highland View is part of Gulf County. Highland View has spoken. The 100 folks that are at the meeting last week, I think, spoke loudly, and they spoke to the county commissioners. And I know that this city commission has a responsibility and a decision to make, but right now the county commission has instructed me to move forward with their unanimous voice. Their unanimous voice is to represent Highland View and the people there that is a part of the county right now, and they don't have standing. However, the county commission does on voluntary annexations. And it is vitally important that procedurally the city follows the proper steps. I've expressed those to the city attorney. There's procedural deficiencies in the process that's been followed up to this point, and there's concerns that the county commission has moving forward. Most notably, I'll mention one right now. Mr. Kelly spoke last week about bodies of water. There was discussions about enclaves. There's a lot of discussions on voluntary annexations under the statute that the city commission needs to discuss and understand, as does the developer, who was asked a lot of questions last week from you, five gentlemen, from the five gentlemen from the county. One in particular jumps out. They're talking about 180 units, okay, in terms of the density and what it does to Gulf County, what it does to the city. I think there wasn't any dispute. There's no other place like that right now in Gulf County. If you took the average of 1 to 3 or 4 bedrooms that they spoke of, I think they spoke of last week, you're talking about anywhere from 1 or 2 people to maybe 4 or 5 people in each unit. So if we just took the average of, say, 3 people, out of 180 units, you're talking about 540 folks. 540 people moving into those 5 or 6 acres that they discussed, not the 9 with the parking and the stormwater and the turning radius. In those 6 or 5 acres of the 540 people, your population in the city right now is 3,700, give or take, folks walking the streets. Okay, a very small community. What does 500?
Counselor, I'm going to go ahead and grant you time. You're representing the county.
Appreciate that. What does 500 plus people change the dynamics of the city of Fort St. Joe, and how does it change the county's face going forward? Okay, estimated that's about 14.6% change in the population of your city. Okay. Statutory language, Attorney General opinions, case law, all speak to 5% of geography or 5% of population. You're considering right now 3 times what the courts have held in terms of population change in Fort St. Joe. So if nothing else comes from today, I think you've heard it last week, and I think you're hearing it right now. The people of Highland View need to be heard. And in the past, when there were city and county issues that I've worked for in the last 10 years, they rolled up the fire department door, they had a town hall meeting, and they welcomed everybody to come down there and listen to them. I don't know of that opportunity being afforded to the people of Highland View, but I would certainly encourage this commission to embrace them, because the county commission has already spoken loud and clear, 5-0. Send a letter, Mr. Novak. Ask for a workshop, Mr. Novak. Let's have a meeting. The people showed up at that meeting because it was well advertised. Ms. Lyons went around door to door and told everybody. Mr. Kelly's going door to door and telling everybody. So at this point, if there is no decision today, and some majority vote of this board, reach out to the people of Highland View. Do it for the county commission's request, because they're the only voice, and their voice now has been instructing me to go to court to stop the city from doing it. You have 500 plus people you're adding to your population. The law is very clear on that, and it goes much deeper than just simply annexing and a proposed land use change that's never been done before. You're setting precedent for the future of both Gulf County and the city. So I just implore you all to please reach out to Highland View. If you don't make a decision today, go to their community, have a town hall meeting, go to the fire department. That body of water is much more consequential than simply arguing an enclave and reaching across a body of water to a community and peeling out 9 acres, but leaving the rest of Highland View. It's actually an impediment for those people to come and participate today. Some folks can't get here. Some people have to ride a golf cart, and they can't ride a golf cart across that bridge. So please, if there is no decision, I'm here on behalf of the county commission. If you're gonna not vote, pump the brakes, reach out to those people, make and exhaust your research. But I've also shared with Mr. Albrecht all my legal concerns, or the most of them, and I'd rather have those vetted out and discussed before putting them in a writ of certiorari that stops you all in the next 30 days. I appreciate the time.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else in the audience?
You can see my smiling face. How y'all doing?
All right, sir.
First thing, Bart Lyle. I don't understand why you've got to annex it. I mean, y'all to tell me they want to annex this piece of property into the city limits. Then they want y'all to change the codes? That makes a lot of sense to me. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't believe there's anybody in Highland View that doesn't want development. But the kind of development that you're asking for is way above normal. That's what everybody in Highland View is against. As far as development, I think everybody's fine. But putting a 4-story building up there is something else. That's the problem right there. I believe everybody in Highland View, they don't have no problem with development. But the changing the codes and putting the 4-story building up there is a different thing. And my second thing is, if y'all table this for discussion, you know what it looks like? It looks like you're putting it off till there ain't nobody here for y'all to vote on. That's what it looks like. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Come on up, sir.
I'm John Strayer. I live in Highland View. I'm the fire chief up there. And if y'all come in here and put these 160, 180 units up there, who's going to buy me a truck to support the fire department there? I don't have a high rise. I don't have an aerial truck. We don't have nothing to store it off the ground. And everyone puts four stories plus, R4, you go 60 foot. That's to the eve. They can put 6 stories in there if they want to. And we can't fight that. We don't have the equipment. Are y'all gonna buy me a new truck and build me another building to put this truck in? Just to fight that right there, or to control that area?
I asked about that because I was concerned with what he said at the workshop. And I went to City Hall and I asked him, I said, well, how will that work? You know, would we need to find another fire truck?
Yeah.
And the answer I got was, if they did annex it into the city and then make this development, the fire protection and the police protection would fall on the city,
So
not the
you're gonna come
volunteer
from the
fire
city
department.
with a truck, when I'm sitting right across the street from this area.
Well, if that's where the ladder truck was,
There's a ladder truck in town. That's.
Well, that was the answer I got. I just want you to know that.
15 minutes away.
Yeah, that's.
I'm not saying it's a good deal. I'm just telling
Like,
you.
so we're not against development.
Yeah.
If you put the regular, normal county rules in, we're fine. But don't be jacking things up 4 to 6 stories high, putting 500 people in 5 acres of land. That's unreal. We oppose it. We oppose to 5 stories and the GER4, whatever. We oppose all that. But you go by normal rules, we're fine.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Come on up, sir.
From James Lyon from 425 Redfish. I want to know what voluntary annexation means.
Anybody have that definition? Go
Mayor
ahead.
Pro Tem, it's defined under Florida Statute 171.044. Essentially, what the voluntary annexation means is the property owner consents and actually requests on the annexation into the municipality.
Well, that don't seem very voluntary for the community that's there. We don't want annexation. We don't want this project, we don't want annexation either. Why do you have to have that piece of city? So you can develop it and make money off it. Simple. And we don't get a say in what goes there. And I think we should. I mean, we live there and have to deal with this every day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else in the audience? Come on up, sir.
Robert Branch, 1016 Morgan. The interlocal agreement was brought up, rightfully so. It was written in 2005, am I correct? And it was updated 2013. Let's go forward to 2013, what's already been brought up. And I'm gonna read it and see if I'm right on. City agrees to strictly comply with state law with regard to future annexations and will notify county of any proposed annexation prior to any public hearing. As required by state law, no involuntary annexation shall take place without a referendum. Okay. Item 7, we're still on 2013, the updated one. City and county shall continue to cooperate in the joint development of the sports complex to be located on 60 acres donated to the city by St. Joe Company. What is y'all's understanding on them two?
Mayor Pro Tem.
We cannot comment on it.
We're in current litigation.
You can't comment on number 7, but you can talk about number 6.
Mayor Pro Tem, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Because we have current pending litigation on which may be relevant to number 7, I'm going to advise the board not discuss because this county has voted, as Mr. Novak was so eloquent, unanimously to pursue legal action against the city should they adopt it. I would suggest that the commission not comment on number 6. But, and I don't like to litigate in a form that ultimately doesn't matter. The litigation in a form that does matter would be in a courtroom. But today, I would agree, I would stipulate that the plain reading of number 6 of the 2013 interlocal agreement speaks for itself.
Thank you.
Okay, do I still have a minute?
You've got a minute and a half, sir.
I appreciate, Mr. Albrecht, what you said. Now let's back up to 2005. I started 2013. 2005 says the city shall match county commission contributions toward the sports complex up to a maximum of $600,000 on the 75 acres given. We're talking real estate. We lost 15 acres from 2005 to 2013. And this is what this is all about, real estate. Would y'all like to comment on that?
No, sir.
Rightfully so. But that, I mean, I've read this as much as anybody. And that's why I'm up here, because I was also a resident of Highland View for 20 years. And let's be careful what y'all start. Now, I've been up here at this podium more than anybody in the last year and a half trying to protect what I've got. These people wrote this up for a good reason. Y'all need to read it. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Anyone for the audience? Come on up, sir.
Gentlemen, I think I got a solution for you. I've lived here all my life. I know just about every one of you. I work with you. I live in Highland View because I don't want to live in the city. So the simple solution is, why don't y'all build in the city? That'll end the problem with Highland View. I'm sure y'all got land somewhere. You wouldn't. As far as this gentleman, I can tell the way he talks, he's for it. If they building in his back door, I guarantee you, he'd be out here with us. The way we feel.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the audience? Come on up.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. My name is Louis Goncoto. I live at 229 Whiting Street, which is 2 blocks from Carpet Country. I'm also a couple blocks from the property, the said property that's discussed. I've had the privilege of living here for the past 10 years. I'm very proud to live here. I love this little community. I don't want it to look like a Destin. I don't want it to look like Miami Fort Lauderdale. That's where you're headed. One little project, then another little project, then the next little project. Forgotten Coast. You will never. This is the last bastion of great coastline. You build it up, it's gone. It'll look like Panama City Beach. I am not opposed to development of any kind or growth. Responsible. Do you want to look at buildings or do you want to look at the water? I plan on retiring here. I'm very proud to live here. The people are great. Nothing more to add. I think we need to have a say, because that going to have profound impacts, not just now, but years down the road. Because if you let this go on, then you can put a 5-story building out on the marina. I don't want to see a 5-story, I want to see the water. That's why we're here. It's safe, it's quiet, more people, more crime. When's enough? We need Targets, we need Walmarts. The responsible development is what we need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the audience? Any further discussion from the board? All right, I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call vote. We'll start with you, Commissioner Hoffman.
And this is on the motion that the mayor made?
This is the motion to do away with this ordinance.
I vote no.
Okay. Commissioner Lowry.
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
What is this for now?
This is to do away with this development completely. The ordinance, second reading of the ordinance.
I'm not ready to make that decision right now.
Well, you have to vote.
Yes or no?
Either or not.
Be a man.
To clarify, a yes vote would be to do away with this. A no vote would allow it to remain on the agenda and assume obtain another motion for action on the item.
I'm voting no.
Okay, and I vote no. Motion fails, 2-3.
Do we need a motion for the continuance? I'll make that motion at this time, that we move forward with the continuance and buy us time to figure out where we are legally in the issue dealing with the county.
Second.
We got a motion and a second.
One second, please. If we could include Commissioner Hoffman in your motion, a date to continue it to.
Speak up, we can't hear you.
We were looking for a continuation date,
Staff
specified
has
date.
provided 2 dates, possible dates, as July 16th or August 6th.
The motion will include a continuance until August 6th.
Okay, we have a motion. Oh, sorry, Mayor, you're back up again.
Okay, my turn. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? We got a second. Any opposition to the motion? Yes, no, so motion carries 3-2.
All right, thank you, Commissioners.
This is a slightly different issue than we started, but
Come on for just a minute, Mr. Attorney.
land use changes. Ordinance 163 adopted 3191 2AFS. The city and county reached an approval agreement that involves concessions by the city, by the developer, that the county was not able to remit. I'm sorry, I lost my place. Additional annexation in the community of Highland View was heavily debated, and the new densities were out of character for Highland View, although we have one-story buildings. The affected and the identity of the community, the city and county reached an approval agreement that involves concessions by the city. The driving factor behind annexation was to increase the development density for the annexation resulted in the Board of Community. It states very clearly in this is one from 2005. It had to do with the Windmark project. In this, it says that we get to vote on referendum. Now, we can't vote for you, and it's very unfair for you to go against an agreement that we had in 2005 and was kept in 2013. I mean, you know, well, how can we believe anything you say? If you're gonna back off on something that was approved twice. I mean, this has nothing to do with who you put there. It has to do with the fact that you're going over the head of an agreement that you made with the city, with the county. Now, there's no way that that should go forth. And not just this development, but any development that doesn't have the county interest involved. Nothing should be put there above the density that the county allows.
And I'll just say, ma'am, these guys have put us in another lawsuit. So get ready, city, you got a lot coming.
That's right. And we're back them 100%. We'll back our lawyer 100%.
Say what? Who made a comment out there? Who made that comment?
I said we're gaining something is what I said.
And who is that I'm talking with?
Fred Morris.
Okay, you can't even vote here. You don't, not even, you live in Georgia, you vote in Georgia.
Hey, I pay taxes right here in the city. I can say what I want to say.
Sure you can.
Right, so remember that.
Sure. All right, where we at? Telephone call.
No, that's the timer. You're done, Mayor.
I'm done.
Mayor, before the commission, this discussion regarding a possible medical marijuana treatment center facility ordinance. There's a proposed ordinance, which is not, I just did that to give some guidance to the commission. Does not have to be adopted. I don't believe it's prepared to be adopted today. The statute, and I sent an email out to the commissioners with the lay of the basic land as it pertains to the statute. It's the city, according to Florida law, can eliminate medical marijuana treatment centers, not allow them. Or you can allow them, but only under very strict requirements, as the Florida statute, Florida legislators preempted most of the authority for regulation to the state. Preempted meaning the state gets to make the regulations. So the commission, if A, can take action, eliminate medical marijuana treatment centers, or B, you can allow them, but you cannot determine the amount. You can have a little bit of wiggle room in the location, and I believe the city of Port St. Joe, and this is, don't hold me to this as an illegal opinion, but roughly there's 2 places that I could foresee generally that a medical marijuana treatment center could go. Currently in St. Joe, could be more or less, but with the advent of, the implementation of the new legislation, the expiration of our former ordinance related to this, the county had taken action to eliminate medical marijuana treatment centers altogether here recently. Mr. Anderson, I believe it would be a good time to bring this up to the commission for discussion.
I was wondering this was coming back.
Well, and two, the people voted for it,
Yeah.
no doubt. We need to decide as a body if we're gonna allow a treatment center here, here in our city, so.
And I think, I'm trying to remember back, this was a couple of years ago when we voted on this to do a moratorium. And my only concern was location. I don't think that we need to promote the sale of medical marijuana or recreational marijuana on Reed Avenue. I don't think that people that need it for medical reasons should be able to go someplace in maybe Commerce Park. I think that would be the ideal location. If you need it for medical reasons, that's where it's available. I don't think that it needs a storefront and nice flashy lights in the window. That is why I think we went for the moratorium the last time, and if you're saying that's no longer an option, that we have to completely eliminate it, I would pose this thought to the board that in 2020, you can bet it's probably going to be back on the ballot again as recreational, and we're going to have to deal with this all over again. Hopefully they'll allow more restriction on location when that happens.
And if I may, obviously a ban is easier concept of grass, so I'll move that to the side. If the city were to allow medical marijuana treatment facilities, Florida statute, and I won't name off the number, but Florida statute prohibits the municipality from placing specific limits on the number of medical marijuana treatment center dispensing facilities. So you cannot limit the number. And then next, any ordinances for criteria for the location cannot be more restrictive than ordinances already in place in the municipality for permitting or determining the locations of pharmacies licensed under Chapter 465. So if the city's to allow them, obviously there's only a few things, restrictive rules you can put in place. If the city wants to ban them, the city has the right to do that per Michigan statute.
Now, if I'm hearing you right, you say if we allow one and we gotta allow anybody else that wants to, we could wind up with 4 or 5 and we couldn't stop them. Is that what you're saying?
You cannot place specific limits on the number of medical marijuana treatment centers. That is correct. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they can go up anywhere they want to, but
right.
You can't put a limit on it.
And I would love to get the Department of Health's input on how many people do we have in Fort St. Joe that are using medical marijuana. And if I knew those numbers, I mean, I don't, just from an economic standpoint, it may not be worth it for a dispensary to come here, you know, if they're not making enough. And as I understand, the law also requires dispensaries to deliver to unserviced areas. So it's still available. We're not telling the people they can't have it. I think we're just saying we don't want it on Reed Avenue.
And this is just pertaining to treatment centers, not necessarily the use.
Right.
So.
We need to go ahead and take a vote on this?
Not necessarily
Get a motion?
but if the commission wants to adopt an ordinance, I would appreciate the commission informing what direction to go with the drafting of that ordinance. I drafted one that eliminated them, but if the commission wants to allow them to come in, we can certainly, those rules will be a little more tedious, but we can certainly come up with an ordinance to allow that.
It makes me a little nervous to allow them because it could go on and go on and go on. And two, the option of mail order allows for it. But if you want to wait and see what the numbers of legal,
I mean, I support
cards that are issued. Or,
I support a ban at this time, and that's the great thing about this ordinance is you can rescind that ordinance at any time. So if the rules change at the legislature that makes it easier for us to determine where we want it, then we can go back and rescind the ordinance.
Right.
So I mean, at this time, I would say my opinion to the attorney would be to draft an ordinance prohibiting the sale of medical marijuana.
And I think, Mr. Anderson, would it be appropriate to have that on the next agenda meeting?
Could we adapt the ordinance that Gulf County has already approved and just
follow suit?
Yeah, well, just kind of tax the city to be part of the countywide ordinance.
We couldn't say, the city couldn't say that I adopt the same ordinance as the county, but we could essentially take the same verbiage and make it our own. Yes, sir.
How about we approve the city attorney to look at their ordinance and see if it fits in line in your agreement with the ordinance and covers all the areas that we need covered?
We were working in harmony on this, Mr. Hoffman, Commissioner Hoffman. I have received a copy of the county's ordinance and the proposal for the city of Fort St. Joe, which is included in your agenda packet. It follows extensively the county's ordinance, which they adopted.
Well, and my concern is that being that the county has already passed an ordinance stopping the dispensaries or the shops, I mean, they're going to come to the city. Now, I don't mind sharing with anyone here that I believe there's people that need medical marijuana and they benefit from it. But the fact, like Commissioner Lowry said, there's another avenue to get that medication through either going to another area to get it or going to mail order like I do for my prescriptions. So I'm not in support of stopping people from getting what's legal and what's helpful, especially children suffering from seizures. But I am comfortable with allowing you to work on an ordinance that would prohibit it in the city limits of St. Joe.
And that, again, I'm I don't have an opinion one way or the other as to what's best for the city. Of course, that's within the purview of the commission, but I would agree with you. I'm not for those in need not getting their medication. This pertains specifically to the treatment centers and not the use thereof of legally prescribed marijuana.
Thank you.
If you want to put down a motion, I'm fine with it, I'll second.
Yeah, I'll put that in the form of a motion.
All right, we got a motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Anybody in the public? Any opposition to the motion? Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, and I'll plan to bring a ordinance for this commission to consider at the next meeting. Lastly, is the disaster recovery consulting contract that this commission will remember back. The city approved a joint RFP with the county for a disaster recovery consultant. The county and city jointly reviewed the proposals which are submitted by the applicants. The county has selected CDR McGuire Inc. As its consultant, and I believe that Mr. Anderson was on the selection committee, is that correct, Mr. Chairman? And before you today is a proposed agreement between the city of Port St. Joe and CDR McGuire Inc., the awarded consultant. The contract, I won't bore you with the general legal terms, but the contract, in working with Mr. Anderson, we felt it best that the contract require task orders in advance of beginning or completing the work, so the city, so that I would anticipate CDR McGuire would determine what the request of the city is, determine how much that time and materials that will cost them, provide a task order with that number, and then we bring it to the commission. The commission would then approve or disapprove of that task order, and that would go on throughout the life of this contract.
Is this just an as needed, or are they gonna come in and be actively, are we putting them on retainer? How does the payment work? Is it all based on task orders?
It's all based on task orders, and there's a payment schedule, which they've, in their response to the RFP, they provided their rates. But, so they're not, there's no retainer. They're paid for work, but they have to get that work approved prior to incurring the work via task order.
My next question would be a funding question. Jim, where does this come from? Is this something that we get reimbursed for?
Commissioner, basically, what this is to help us out if we run into problems. We're applying for FEMA funding. Mr. LaCourse went through and done most of the legwork already for that. He's working through the final stages of that. What we envision is when we encounter problems that we may or may not see coming down, we may need to have these folks go back and do a review. Like when Mr. LaCourse gets done in the next couple of weeks, we may come back to you and say, hey, it may be a good idea to have these guys look behind us, make sure we've done our due diligence before we finalize with FEMA as to what our wish list is.
So they're doing more consulting than the work?
Yes, sir. This is here to help us if we run into something. Let's say if we get into these CDBG-DRs, we get into those, if you need a question on those, they will be available, but down the road, you're gonna see where we're looking at grants that'll probably help out specifically with that. But if you run into problems with whether it's the state or the federal level after Hurricane Michael, that's where these guys are supposed to be experts and have to have a large staff at your disposal.
Basically a FEMA profession.
Right.
Yeah.
And how much is it gonna cost you?
It's based on-
Roughly, I mean, some kind of dollar figure.
It's based on task orders, Mayor. Basically, depending on what your needs are as the board. If the board don't need them, there won't be any charge. But if we want to, let's say, do that review for us, what we'll do is we'll ask CDR, we'll ask them, say, okay, give us a task order, tell us the cost to do that review, and then we'll bring it before the board and get approved.
Okay, I'm just a little confused because we're gonna pay a man to follow up behind our personnel to make sure they did stuff right. And we wouldn't pay a man $16,000 to try to come and make us some money. It don't make sense to me, but I guess that's why I'm on the outgo. But, you know, we could have had a man for $16,000 that would have did a lot for us, and some members of this board didn't think it was a good idea. But I guess they think it's a good idea to have this consultant come aboard. It's going to be checking behind our personnel to make sure they did things right, the way I'm hearing it.
Well, I think you're completely off on the comparison of the two. The person that you supported hiring wanted $16,000 with no promise of jobs or producing money in grants. This deal, they find a grant, they come before the city and ask the city, do you want to spend the money in applying for the grant? And if we say no, then we're out no money. But in the other situation, we're out $16,000. There's a big difference between the two. Furthermore, the county has already hired this group, correct?
Yes,
And I know, Mr. Mayor, I've heard you numerous times say if the county is for it, you are for it.
I'm not saying I'm against it.
Well,
I'm just saying I'm against us not hiring that $16,000 a year man when he could have made us plenty of money too.
I share your concerns, Mayor. I just think I'm tired of waiting. We've got to get somebody, whoever it is in this position, to start finding out where the low-hanging fruit is and picking the tree clean.
Didn't Bay County hire this firm?
Yeah, sure. And CDR McGuire, their major task is to try and ensure as much reimbursement through federal programs, whether it's FEMA or the other grant programs, back to the city for those expenditures incurred due to the Hurricane Michael, and possibly growth thereafter.
And again, let me make it perfectly clear. I am not against this company. That's not what my argument is. My argument is we could have had both of them. $16,000 was a little bit of money to spend with their proven record they've done in states as Texas, Louisiana, South Carolina. I mean, they had stuff where they produced. It wasn't a question of can you do it. You've already done it. So that was my argument, is why didn't we hire both of them? I mean, I'm fine with this company. But I'm not fine when we don't feel like $16,000 is too much money to spend on this city when it was tore up the way it was. Are you really for the city if you do that? $16,000, that's no money. We had that everywhere. BP money, wherever you want to take it from. But people up here, some people didn't. Mr. Ashbrook, he was right with me. Because he knew it was a good deal. He went to the same meetings I went to listen to these people and saw what they had done. So that is my argument. I want to make that plain and clear that I have no problem with this company we're fixing to hire. I'm going to vote to hire them. But I had a problem with us turning the other company down because we didn't think it was worth $16,000.
Attorney, I do have one question for you. And this may be per task order. Is there anything in that agreement that would allow them to charge the administrative fee onto the grant, get paid that as well as get paid by the city?
They're not necessarily going to be chasing grants. Not that they won't, but they're not necessarily chasing grants. What they're trying to do is ensure optimal reimbursement to the city, locate areas of damage due to hurricane, whether maybe we'll take infrastructure. I'm working with another consultant, with another client. They're trying to determine the amount of damage to the infrastructure and what it will cost to repair it, because they may need engineers to make determination. FEMA has engineers, but you work with all of them and determine, well, what's the damage? Well, now we got to repair it. Now we want to be reimbursed. Whether that's lift stations, other things. Also, the damage that we can see with our eyes, the buildings, etc.
So I'm just trying to clarify our needs.
They're not necessarily
that.
chasing a grant. Not they may be aware of one, but they're not. Their goal is not to necessarily get you the grants to tell you where it is.
The reason I wanted clarification is further down, we have RFQ for grant writing services, and the way I kind of take this is we're hiring a FEMA liaison, essentially, which does a different job than the grant writer that we're about to look at.
Yes, and that wouldn't limit them to just FEMA, but federal reimbursement programs, yes. Okay. That can include waterways through other federal agencies and things like that.
Clear as mud.
I'll make a motion we hire this firm based on the proposal in front of us.
All right, we got a motion? Second. Have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Thankfully, Mayor, I'm done with my portion.
That's all we got, man. Don't you want to go another round? All right, Jim, leave it in.
Yes, sir. First item, July 4th. Did speak with Pyro Shows, who will be handling our fireworks. The fireworks are scheduled for 6 o'clock on the 4th. They will be launched from the Clifford Sims Park, so that is scheduled for there. I was also asked that staff bring back any festivities that we have going forth around the 4th holiday. The only one that we have complete paperwork on is the one by County Commissioner Mr. Quinn, who's got all his paperwork, everything is set for the street now, so that one's set to go. We still have not received any paperwork from Ms. Cora Curtis in reference to the event that was talked about on July 4th, so I do not have anything on that one. But we have received a contact from Latrina McNeil in reference to a concert on the 6th. All indications are that we'd be on the concert that would be asking for alcohol at the Washington Gym. We mentioned to them that that would require additional paperwork, but we haven't seen the additional at this point. As additional details come down, we will pass it along.
Jim, would a burn ban preclude us from having fireworks on the 4th of July? Do we have a contingency for that?
Good question.
I'd say so.
I mean, that'll
Just don't have some rain though.
Hopefully between now and then we have some rain, but just a good question. We will follow up on it.
Make sure we notify the Fishing Express.
Yes.
And the other boats that may be moored.
Yes.
That either they might want to offer a fireworks boat ride or something. We just need them to move. We can't have the fireworks coming down.
Yes, sir. The fireworks display coordinator did ask that the boats be moved out of there for, that 20 minutes or so that the fireworks are being. Okay. Thank you, sir. The next item we have is in reference to the FEMA damage assessment report. We're working through those. We have a meeting with Mr. Bo Creel on Thursday to work through those. Ultimately, what you'll see is there'll be a letter that'll be sent out to the 102 currently that are affected by the damage assessment on those. Right now, we have roughly 60 demo permits, the other permits, so we're matching all those up. So most of the folks are already aware of it, but yes, sir, we have to send out a letter that's coming. Any other questions? The next item, MLK coordinated corridor zoning change. That is the 18 acres that potentially is going to 40 units per acre. That we do have a preliminary green light from DEO to move forward, so they have reviewed it. So at this point, I did contact Mr. Ray Greer. He is working on the notice this week. So there will be a notice sent on that, and we'll bring it back to the City Commission to vote on that zoning change to go to up to 40 units per acre for the 18 acres.
Did we create a new zone, Jim, or was that just a special overlay district?
I would let Mr. Greer explain the details of that, but it is changing the density in there. Yes, sir. The density currently right now is mixed use, which is, I believe, it's 5 units per acre. So yes, sir, it is a density change. I'm not sure the mechanics of exactly how that works on that. It is pretty complex. I'll let Mr. Ray Greer, if you got any questions, I can definitely pose those to you.
Well, and to be clear, that's 40 units per acre within the boundaries of the city of Port St. Joe.
Yes, sir, that's my understanding. Yes, sir. Any other questions on that? Okay, the next item, new business. This is with the grant. RFQ 2019-01. The commission asked us to go out and look for a grant writer. We had 2 responses, Gurris and Associates and the Ferguson Group. The 2, Gurris and Associates, I believe he is more geared towards your CDBGs and your CDBG-DR, which is the disaster relief on there. And the other company, the Ferguson Group, looks like they have a wide array of different ones that they proposed. Staff recommendation would be to do similar to what you're talking about with the disaster recovery. Those folks looking for state and federal dollars, do that with your grant services. Put them on a continuing services contract and have a task order with these folks. If they find a grant out there for you, tell them to come back and say, okay, this is what we would charge to be able to get that grant, whether it comes out of the grant itself or a separate charge. The Ferguson Group, they outlined a cost in there. They want $12,000 a year in a retainer and a cost per grant. So they may not go for this. But recommendation, if you're going to go out for this, offer that to Gurris, and if you're interested in Ferguson, we can offer it to them. And if they're not interested in it, then we can bring it back to you, or we can at least, I believe Mr. Gurris is agreeable to doing that for the CDBG grants for us.
And I feel like that's our biggest opportunity for money post-storm is those DR grants.
We need to set ourselves in line to be ready for these. We don't have all the rules of engagement coming down for the Department of Economic Opportunity, but I strongly urge the board to go ahead and have somebody in place that when that money comes available, they can tell us these rules, because those could be a game changer for the city of Port St. Joe when these big dollar grants come down.
I have been told by a couple legislators that we should be writing those grants now. You can tweak the language as far as requirements later on, but we need to determine what those grants will be now. Get them written so we can be the first, because it's a long process.
Yes, sir. Staff recommendation to offer to keep both of these on retainer, offer them, and if they do, then you could actually task them whenever grants come available, try to do that work for you.
But there's a $12,000 retainer on Ferguson.
That's what they put into the RFP response back in here. So they may not agree to it, Mr. Lowry. They may say, you know, we don't want that offer altogether, but that's what they put in there. Let's see if it's on page.
They want $1,000 a month.
$1,000 a month, you're right. And then they give a schedule per grant, so, and if they ask for a state or federal grant, most of these, they say, a standard cost is between $18,000 to $21,000. That would be your standard ones for your state or your federal grants, your larger ones. So
What's your recommendation on one or the other, or?
What I would do is, Commissioner, I would offer Gurris and Associates a continuing services contract, work off a task order, which I believe they would agree to. And I would also offer to the Ferguson group too. You could pick and choose who you want, because they list a lot of other different grants out there. They're probably not going to go for it, but it's a big firm based out of Washington that if they would agree to this, you would have them at your disposal when something comes up.
My only fear, guys, is if you do that and you say, hey, we found a grant, can you write it for us? We may be missing out on stuff that's out there that we don't know about. And I think that we need somebody actively out there pinging the web saying what's available. And I don't know if they'd probably want to do that. Because if they present us with a grant, we accept it, then they'll get paid.
Exactly. The
We need
more
to be
what they
clear
do,
on
the
that.
more task orders come before you, potentially more income for that firm.
Or if they deny the offer and say, no, we have to have the retainer fee, well, then we just say no and we continue to look for another group that.
And hopefully you would at least have the Gurris and Associates on board to help with these big ones, because I believe he would be amenable to doing that type of work.
So he's for doing the CDBG DR
yes.
grant.
If you look
And
back
you've
to-
talked to him about that, and he's fine with, well, I'm good with that.
His project list was
Yeah.
substantial.
Oh, he's very
He's done a lot of those. We need to work out the mechanics of the money, but I believe he would be amenable to that. So yes, sir, that would be a staff recommendation and offer.
I'll make a motion to make an offer to both companies. If Ferguson Group requires the $12,000, deny that, we'll stick with Gurris and Associates.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Any opposition to the motion? Motion carries 5-0.
We will reach out to both of those groups this week. The last item we have is lease a city property for an ice machine. This was a discussion that came up a few years back. We've been approached again by a gentleman, Mr. Henry Rackley, to propose leasing a piece of property from the city, primarily around the boat ramp, to put an ice machine in place in there. Mr. Rackley, I'm not sure if he's here. He was going to try to be here. I do not see him here today. But that's what he was asking. He wanted to know if there was any interest from the city. He's also looking at a couple of other locations within the city limits to potentially put one. To my understanding, he actually bought the one that's on the Paul Gant property, and he was wanting to put another one in the city. So if there's any interest on something, let us know. We can always bring him in, talk to him to see if that's something you want to do on city property.
I think there's a need, from a legal perspective, should we be getting into that business, you know?
And I spoke with Mr. Anderson about this. I think, I'm not saying it's impossible or always wrong, but I think when you get into using public property for private gain, the city being a landlord for a private business, it can be problematic. You get into discussions about allowing one vendor but not another, eliminating competition. It can open up a Pandora's box of issues. But with that said, I'm not saying that there's not an always no answer. So if it's something the city wants us to look at, certainly we'll look at it further.
I feel like it's a definite need at the boat ramp. However, I think we should follow due process and go out for an RFQ and say, hey, we want an ice machine who wants to provide that for us as a service, and then we'll lease them the land that way. That at least everybody gets an opportunity. Okay.
If it's something we want to do, let us know, and we can take further action at a later time.
I'm not opposed to it, following the right steps. It'd be a nice addition. Do you need anything to move on that, or?
I'd recommend let's wait.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to give the gentleman some kind of indication of, are we looking at the possibility? I'm a no, I'll just tell you. I think there is a need. I agree with David, there's a need down there, but I would be more inclined to pursue, would the city be allowed, being that we're building a brand new fish cleaning table with power,
I was
maybe-
thinking-
Maybe we could purchase a ice machine and supply the people that use the boat landing, you know, and not, you know, at a not-for-profit type of cost. I'd be more in line with that kind of thing. Don't know if we can do it or not, I'm not sure. but-
From a legal perspective, I'd much prefer, for the city's benefit, that option that you referred to, Commissioner Hoffman, as opposed to getting in the business of being a landlord for a private business as their own pecuniary gain.
But I think it's fair, you know, to let the gentleman know that probably aren't going to go that route.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we're still competing with business.
Yeah,
So, I probably wouldn't be.
I don't think I'll be for it, but I think Mr. Hoffman said, not for profit, and I think we need to charge as much as anybody else charge and put it, and make some type of fund. Yeah, like a boat ramp fund or something like that before, we let somebody else get into it and give the money, we can use it, the city can use it.
We looked at it probably 2013, 2014, and we were leaning toward the same way personal home, where we got into the cost of the ice machines. We were surprised how expensive these ice machines.
That was when Polarmatic came in, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Because we had a group here in town that was making beer in town, so they gave a proposal to purchase one and put one in. It was just pricey. That's all I have.
All right, appreciate it, John. Hey, Jim. Hi, John.
No, sir, no updates unless there's questions from the board.
Any questions for John? No thing. Is Larry here?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, I don't really have anything either for this afternoon, unless there's questions.
That means everything going good, don't it?
We hope so.
Any questions for Larry? Kevin?
A couple of things. We got 37 inches of freeboards. That means you get a little over 3 foot of room. We're going to take the month off of June, not discharge. It saves us money and manpower. We'll use our manpower to clean up, repair, do that kind of stuff. A bit of good news from Solarby, which is Medora Corporation. That's the guys we got Solarby that's in the pond, the 5 Solarby. They offered free of charge to do the maintenance plan for us for 2 years. So they just did that because of the shape that the city was in, quoting that, we were good customers and those kind of things. So they're going to start coming in next month to pick up maintenance, which is a godsend. I mean, they did well in the time they had them. They were theirs. We didn't want to pay the money for the plan because we got to put our system back together. We got to spend that money somewhere else.
How much of a savings is that?
$6,000?
13 a year.
13,000 a year.
Yeah, is the maintenance plan. You couldn't ask for, somebody to do any more for you. I just thought that was a wonderful, thing, and I told them so.
So you're asking for a new truck?
Yes, that's on my list. And then the last thing is our pumps that we ordered, our bypass pumps that you guys approved will be in the second week of July. And hopefully we can get the farmable water pump back to them. We've had that pump since the hurricane, between me or John. And it's a new pump when we got it, so thankful that Florida Water's been nice enough to let us hold on to it this long. And that's all I've got for the commission. If you guys have questions.
I just want to talk about the smell.
Okay.
Haven't had any complaints yet, but we all know it's coming. And I can guarantee everybody in this room will get a lot of calls from Highland View this year because of the vote that was just made. And there's probably going to be some newspapers brought in, TV cameras, and some lawyers. Because they should not have to smell that mess. And I've been over there and it's so sickening you can't hardly breathe. Now that don't happen all the time, I know that. But I'm just giving everybody a warning. If we don't control that this year, we're going to have trouble, big trouble. Because they threatened to call them before and they haven't called them, but after this vote that was made today, they ain't going to give a hoot. They're going to probably make as much bad stuff for the city as they can do when it comes to that. And if any of you people have ever been over there, when that smells in Highland View, you know it gags you to death. You can't hardly breathe. But the residents over there, they got to live with it. And we've done things to try to slow it down. We've slowed it down some, but we haven't completely knocked it out. And maybe these people doing this maintenance work will help with some of that. I'm just hoping so. I'm just trying to tell the consequences of what's going to happen this year if they go to smelling a lot of foul smell.
So, when we're treating the pond with bacteria, biological dredging, part of that program starves out the algae. So it's hardier feeding than the algae. So that's why we don't have algae popping up now.
Good.
There's algae in the pond, but it doesn't pop up to the surface because
Right.
it can't make it.
Sure.
So that program's working.
Good. Okay,
And
thank
as long as
you.
that works, then we won't come up with that algae smell, which is the harshest of the smells we've had
Yeah.
over the years.
Okay, thanks, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Mike?
Our auditor, Ben Vance, has completed our fiscal year 17-18 audit, and he's in production on those. I should have hard copies of those for you at the next meeting. We've started our budget process internally for this upcoming budget cycle, so we'll get an agenda or schedule out for that upcoming budget process for you to review. We're working with Stantec on developing our sewer wholesale rate. They've got I've given them about 60% of the data that they need to develop those rates, so I'm continuing to push data out to them, so that process is moving along. And we're continuing to work our FEMA and insurance programs to get those processed. They're still moving along. And that's all I had for you today.
Any questions for Mike? All right, city engineer?
Yes, sir, Mayor. He's unable to attend today, but I do have an update from Mr. Smallwood, if you would like it, Mayor. Two projects that he wanted to make sure you're updated on was the road bond money for the Ballsell Avenue paving. The paving was done last week. They're still working on some cleanup and some final grading, and they'll be putting the striping on the road shortly for that, so that's completed there. And he also wanted to know the Garrison Avenue, this is the FDOT project for the Scott Phase 2. This will be from 16th to this building here. That is actually, he's working on the engineering work to submit the FDOT approval for that, so that's.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, city police.
Thank you, Mayor. The chief is off today, so I'm.
You gotta come up here.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you don't get to sit down, man. Them guys get to sit there. The police has to make it to the podium. How you doing, Paul?
Good, how you doing? Thank you, Mayor. For the commissioners that don't know me, my name's Paul Beasley. I'm part-time employed with the police department, work as a detective. There wasn't anything on the agenda for the police department. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer your questions or address any concerns that you may have.
Just the golf carts.
Yeah, like I said earlier, with the golf carts, and I know you don't have enough officers, but at least tell them to be on the lookout.
They do. They're vigilant when they're out. If we get any complaints, we certainly respond to them, and we'll enforce the ordinance if we catch the violators.
All right. Any questions for Paul? Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Charlotte?
I don't have anything, sir, unless someone has some questions.
Any questions for Ms. Charlotte? All right, this time we'll go through the audience. Anybody in the audience wish to speak? If you do, please stand up, raise your hand. I see one over here.
Amy Rogers. Would you please explain to me the...
Would you please sign in, Ms. Roberts? And then state your address, please.
Would you please explain to me the corridors, where they're located, what in and out of Northport St. Joe, the purpose of the zoning change on the agenda? Explain that to me.
Jim?
On your agenda. On your agenda?
Yeah, I'm asking Jim to explain it to you. He may know more about it than we do.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't know where you put your...
Yes, ma'am. If you're, Mayor and Commissioner, if you'll turn to page 27, 27 outlines what has been sent to Department of Economic Opportunity. This was roughly the 18 acres that the board has been considering for some time upon the request for the zoning change. The zoning change, if approved by the board, would be up to 40 units per acre, changing the property in the Martin Luther King corridor. 18 acres we're looking at. So at this point, what you're looking at is doing an advertisement and bringing it back to the board to approve by ordinance.
The zoning, what are you gonna zone it for? Are you talking about zoning for R2, R1, or commercial, residential, or R3?
Up to 40 units per acre.
And
to my understanding, what it would be, 30 units per acre if you do not have commercial downstairs. But to my understanding is this would allow up to 40 units per acre if you have commercial downstairs and residential above it.
So include the residential as it is and the commercial property alone adjacent to Martin Luther King? Is it closer to Highway 98 or is it on both sides on the residential going towards Battle Street?
I don't believe it goes up to Highway 98.
No, I'm saying closer. But in between, my question is in between Martin Luther King, the residential and commercial properties in between Martin Luther King and Highway 98, those houses where some people live and those, they're a long time ago used to be businesses, but it's no businesses there. We only have one business on the right hand that is up in,
Yeah, any that's open?
Excuse
Any
me?
businesses over there that's open for business?
One is partially open. It's
Which one is that?
on Peters. It's Peters.
I have never seen no activity there except people working.
They did an open house, but eventually, but my concern again was going towards Highway 98, in that block, they're residential and they're commercial. All I'm asking, does this zoning there includes residential? They want to make that change, as you were saying, so many feet higher, increasing the density, residential and commercial. Is that what this?
Ms. Amy, your 3 minutes is up.
Would y'all give me a second?
Motion to
tonight?
extend.
Please, thank you
All right,
very
go
much.
ahead.
Because to get an answer to that.
Well, let me try and maybe I can help you. This goes back almost probably well, I'm just going to speak how long I've been involved. This is what was discussed when we had a workshop several months ago, and they had the plan and the maps, and it's like an overlay of the map, and it has different zones. And I think what might help you with the understanding of what this language is speaking about is if, Jim, we could get a full packet of, because it's a lot of steps, and we're now, I guess, 4 years into the plan, and I'm only a year into it, so I'm a little bit confused at times too. But I think if we could get you a packet made showing you all the maps, showing you the letter, they sent a letter out a while back to all of the people in that affected area to find out, are you supporting it, do you oppose it? And now today on the agenda is just an update, and correct me if I'm wrong, from the state saying, yeah, you have done certain things, and now here we are at this step in the game. So I think if you could go by City Hall and have the whole packet and go through and spend some time on the packet, you'll get caught up to where we currently are today.
I'm very familiar with the package.
Okay.
My question, I don't think you quite well understand my question. In the city of Port St. Joe, you have a R1 zone, you have an R2, you have an R3. Each one of those, zone 1, 2, and 3, is a definition for it. I do know R1, it says a specific development goes into the R1. R2 is you can commercial and residential. Someone can start their business. On R3, it does allow businesses, but it says multifamily dwelling. We have that over in the Bridgeport area. We have it over in we call it Lisbon entirety, but the Liberty Street and Apollo Street and Broad Street, this was done in 1973, in the 70s when we first had those houses. Over on Bay Street there, we recently had that zoning change from the it was R1 to R2 because a certain resident wanted to open up a business and she said she wanted to be legal, and they rezoned that area. A letter went out to all of our individuals and we all signed. We came to the city commissioner and we voted to allow this to happen. My question stands, in that zone from Martin Luther King to Highway 98, there are residential and commercial housing there. And I only ask, which one of the zonings that's gonna be zoned, is it gonna be a change from the current one? And I think the current one may be a R1, because it's mostly a business, and maybe a 2. I'm not for sure, that I would check and see. But since they're talking about businesses and how you want to establish those businesses and how tall they are, is it an R3? That's all I'm asking.
Well, and now what I'm trying to explain is if you refer back to that packet that now I understand you have, it actually has a map overlay that'll show you in this corridor, this area is R1, this area is proposed R3, and that's what that map indicates, and you can look at that and it'll answer that question. I don't know the answer right off the top of my head because it's very convoluted, but it's in that packet of information.
And each time the residents in that particular zone and attend
Ms. Rogers, excuse me, but your other 3 minutes is up. You'll have to have somebody make a motion in a second to continue.
I'll make a motion to extend the time.
Thank you, because I just want to
I can have a second. Okay, now you're.
I just wanted to get some understanding of what's going on so the residents would know, because the residents haven't responded. A lot of them say they didn't quite well understand. Some of us attended these meetings and we asked a question to residents, then they get shot down and intimidated. And at the meeting, for the PAC meeting, I'm saying, the residents, not the commercial ones, because the majority of the PAC is commercial people that's out of town. So we thought we could try to get a better understanding, because that affects our entire neighborhood and what's actually going on. And the second was that, Mr. Anderson, have the residents responded to the letter Mr. Hoffman mentioned about the letters were sent out to the residents? What was the residents' response?
I don't think we got any. I don't think we received either way. I don't think we received any response back either way.
So I think the city need to listen to the residents before, it's showing you right now, if you didn't get some from the residents who want to change their zone, evidently they don't want it changed.
Either that or they don't care.
That's right.
I mean, there are a lot of people that don't care.
Right.
I mean, I've seen that in my 8 years here, they just do not care.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's the case. Some people just don't care, I don't know.
You got that?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Amy.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the public? Come on up over here.
My name's Marvin Davis, address 324 Avenue B. And I got several questions I'd like to present to the entire board. Number one is concerning my water bill. The main part of it is what I'm paying for sewage. I'm new, I just now came back to the city from being down in Central Florida for 15 years. And I noticed my water bill is about, the sewage is on 130% of the water usage. Question, why is that?
Wow.
Yeah. Water portion was $44 and the sewage was 58. That's about 130% of water. I'd like to know why is that, and I'm quite sure I'm not the only one. If we read our water bill, is paying more for sewage than for water.
Is that just the sewage or is that the trash pickup?
No, the trash was, there's another, I think it was $16, $18, something like that, for trash.
Jim, do you want to explain the
Yes,
rate
okay.
study based
Yes.
on the reasonable
What you
majority?
have is you have a water rate and you have a sewer rate. You have so much per 1,000 gallons, plus you have a base rate. What we have is we had a professional rate study that was done, we started back in 2010, kind of tells how much money we need to collect to pay our bills. I've got a copy of that if you want to come by City Hall, and I'll try to explain it to you. Because basically what you got is the more you use, the more it costs you. And you are correct, if you look at the cost for water and sewer, sewer is more expensive. You know, sewer lines to replace and maintain and take care of, unfortunately, sewer, most of the time, is more expensive. But yes.
That rate, that 130% of my water usage, that's throughout the whole entire city.
There is a rate for residential use, there's a rate for commercial 1 and a commercial 2. Like I said, if you'll come by, I'll give you a copy.
Again, my question is, that's for, let's just deal with residential.
Yes.
That's for the whole entire city of Port St. Joe.
Everybody in the
It's
city and
paying that rate.
county, they have the same rate, yes, sir. We don't differentiate between different areas of town or city, county, they are the
Like I said,
same.
I'm just, because I'm looking at what my rate, what I was paying. And I'm coming from.
The sad part is it's gonna go up by that rate plan that they're referring to. The short answer is the city of St. Joe was bamboozled long ago. And I don't hold it against any of the staff or any of the commissioners. It was just a deal that I think probably should have never occurred, but it did, and we're paying for it. We're gonna continue to pay for it. I paid it, and I gripe about it every time I get my bill, so I understand what you're saying.
What was that bamboozle that,
Well, it had to do with a multi-million-dollar sewage plant, and it's all tied to when the paper company shut down. We had such a big plan, and that was mainly to supply the St. Joe Corporation's paper mill. And then when they closed, we started having to pay that burden of running that plant.
okay. My other question is to all of you, but primarily Eric. Juneteenth, I was asked to make sure that you got the bathroom at the Washington Recreation Center. The female restroom only have one stall. Can we have more stalls for those females? There's only one female stall from my understanding.
That's in the women's bathroom? in
Yes.
Washington? Jim, what can we do about that? I mean, because I don't think it's only already prepared just for one hookup, right?
I haven't been in, I was just told to make sure I present that, let you guys know that in the female restroom, there's only one stall. That's for
We
public
can
use.
open up those other bathrooms that are adjacent building, and that's what I think was discussed last year and needs to be done this year as well.
Okay, I want to ask though, because somebody asked me this question, the possibility of getting another stool or stall put in their women's bathroom. I think that's basically what they want to do.
At least about two more.
But I don't know how soon we'll be able to get to it due to the summer program starting and all the events that's happening this summer. But Jim, if you could work on it, yeah.
What I'm not sure is, I'm not sure how the plumbing is tied and how to be done. We need to look at it. I'm not sure if it's option or not. But I know Commissioner Langston's worked with us, and we've been working on the concession stand out there, and he's taken it upon himself to make sure those restrooms are being repaired and fixed outside. So we do have overflow restrooms, but yes, we'll look to see if there's an option.
Okay, and my last one, if I may have the time, is I think one of you brought up about competition. Why we only have one food store, grocery store in this city? Why? And when I think about that, it's not that a monopoly. That is a monopoly. And does not our government have in our constitution to prevent a monopoly? This is what we have here. This is what I'm coming back to. And I don't know why the citizens of this city have allowed a monopoly in the food industry to go on for as long as it's been going on. That is a monopoly.
Mr. Burns, my feeling on that is people won't get up and complain. Like you're here today, you need to have 30 or 40 people come here with you. So when you have people in numbers, you get things done.
Well,
And I'm afraid, once I get out of this office, that your community is not gonna be treated like it was when I was in office. I know that for a fact. But so what you need to do is get your people together and say, hey, let's go make a difference in this city. We're part of this city. But until you do that, you're not gonna get anything done.
Okay.
There's too many people against you. Now, I've been here 8 years, I know. I know a lot of things other people don't know. Good and bad. If I ever get to telling everything I know, there's gonna be some people might be in jail.
yeah.
Just to tell you the daggone truth. Well, I know some things that should put people in jail.
So my question to you all, because y'all are the one who making policy and everything, what are you guys gonna do to stop that? Because it got to be approved. Somebody had to approve for that monopoly to take place for as long as it's been taking place. Somebody had to approve it. And I'm quite sure somebody had been brought up. It's been brought up. I guarantee you it has been.
Well, I think it would be right to say there was a monopoly if the city had told people that planned to build a grocery store that they could not. And I don't believe that's the case.
We had, when I was growing up here, okay, I was born here in 1955, we left in 74 going into the military. When we had Piggly Wiggly, we had IGA, we had I think it was Rich's IGA, we had Winn-Dixon, and over on Northport St. Joe, there was about 2 or 3 grocery stores we had over there in Northport St. Joe. We had Quinn's and we had the Storewell. So we had, I know when I grew up here in this town here, we had at least 5 or 6 grocery stores in this city. And my thing is, what caused to go from 5 that I know of down to 1, to a monopoly?
Well, what I can tell you is, it wasn't the city, the government of the city telling people that they couldn't have a store.
Okay.
And when you said we only had 1 grocery store, that's not really completely accurate. We have the dollar store that now sells groceries.
But that's not a full grocery store.
Well, but the point is, we would encourage someone to build a grocery store.
Okay, good.
We haven't created a monopoly.
Okay. You have allowed one. You have not created, but you have allowed one.
Yeah, would you like to build a grocery store for the community? We would support it.
Okay.
I guarantee.
Okay, I'll consider that.
That's what you'll find out that
We want
try.
everything. I'll
Yeah, I
consider
would
that.
love to see it.
Okay.
And your community is my community.
Yeah,
I don't look at anybody individually as representing a different community in this town. So when I speak to you, I speak to the whole city of Port St. Joe. We don't have separate communities.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
I'd like to say something too. Both stepping down, but hey, I grew up in Northport St. Joe on that side of town. I represent the entire Port St. Joe, but I'm gonna make sure that I do all that I can to help where I live at. So just because Mr. Bo, with all due respect, is stepping down, doesn't mean you're gonna have anybody to fight for you. Because I'm gonna do whatever I can to help the north side, south side, whatever you wanna call it. I wanna help the entire St. Joe. But as long as I'm on this board, I'm gonna do what's right for the community that I grew up in. So I just want y'all to remember that. And also, the entire Port St. Joe, I'm working hard for those guys too, because it's got to be a point where we stop looking at 2 sides. It needs to be one community, one people working together to accomplish something good for our city, and that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about in the end.
If time permit, those units that they talk about in Hollandville, I'm almost quite sure we can get enough people over in Northport St. Bring them over to Northport St. Joe on Avenue 8, those 7 acres. I think it's 7 point something acres. Then
we'll be arguing about they don't want them there.
Oh, I don't think you'll hear that.
I guarantee you, we'll have an argument about that.
Well,
I guarantee.
Well, give me the name of the developer. I would love to talk about it. Really, I would.
I mean, we can move over in the booming dock. Somebody gonna have something to say.
We got to change that mentality.
I see everybody yawning, I'm gonna take 30 seconds. I appreciate your time.
Fine,
I spoke May 21st, 2 meetings ago, about the stormwater. Hurricane season is now on us again. That's what concerns me. Are we up on the, all the ditches open, everything flowing good, getting ready for the next one?
How we stand on that, John?
We're still working, there's still work to do. All the still open.
Myself and John rode around, when was that, John? Thursday?
Yes, sir.
Thursday morning, and looked at all the ditches in the city. And he coming up with a game plan because we know hurricane season is coming.
We coming up with a plan? What kind of plan we coming up with?
You'll see once it started.
Okay, well, are we talking about covering ditches or uncovering ditches?
We'll let John talk to you about that.
The reason I say that, go ahead, Mr. Albrecht, may I speak, man? I'm still real concerned about behind my house, the y'all's plans of covering that ditch up between 10th and 16th Street. I'm still very concerned. And Mr. Jim, could I ask you one question? You spoke to me last time about if that was piped, that would help clean up the bay. Is that, that's what I want to address. That stormwater canal being piped behind in our neighborhood, that's going to, the outflow is going to clean up the bay, help clean up the bay.
Mr. Branch, I didn't say that if it was piped, it would help clean up the bay. What I said was that we're working on a stormwater grant to help clean up the bay.
That'd be this grant right here, the NERDA grant?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that NERDA grant, is that going to cover, is it going to cover between 10th and 16th or just between 8th and 10th?
No final decision's been made as to what will be or not, will be covered or not covered on Mr. Branch.
So no final decision been made on that?
No, sir. Right now, it's in preliminary stages on there. We're working with the city engineer, working with staff, and that'll be brought back to the city commission to look at that grant in the near future. But no, sir, no final decision.
I'm still real concerned because if we're gonna stay fast, and actually what I'm hearing is going to actually, St. Joe Bay is a big bay. I grew up in Highland View, and I'm gonna go back to my story. I've been floundering down around the Highland View Bridge when the outflow of the Highland View Canal runs out and have to wipe diesel fuel out to be able to get it floundering. Now, if we're gonna improve the quality of one outage, let's go all out and look at everything. That's all I have. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Come on up.
I'm sorry, gentlemen, Christy McElroy, Woodward Avenue. I won't take but just a moment of your time. I do want to enter into the record, and I hope you guys all read this article. It's Walls Won't Save Our Cities from Rising Seas. Here's what will. It's very good. It talks about, making sure your culverts are cleaned out, making sure you take good care of your wetlands, even encouraging rain gardens. I'm really concerned about how hot everything has gotten so quickly and the drought that we're seeing. But don't forget, Mother Nature has a way of correcting herself, or himself, or itself. So I would encourage you guys, since y'all are going around looking at all the culverts and everything, to take a moment and read this article. It's very good and it's very encouraging. A lot of coastal towns, it doesn't matter if you're in New Orleans or Charleston or where you are, if you're a coastal city, this is the new way of thinking. It does include infrastructure, but it's soft infrastructure and it's less expensive infrastructure. So it isn't a big wall. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else from the public? Anyone else? Come on up.
Highland View desperately needs a grocery store. We would not be opposed to that. Our grocery store on the way in the hurricane has not been rebuilt. We have a stop and go type of place, and it's fine, but that was actually our center where everybody met, was at Dixie Dean. And so I would seriously almost guarantee you could get people to agree to putting the brochures together. I'll have my water done. But anyhow, that, I would really wish that you would consider that use out there, because we did lose one. And we lost one that actually had a large number of products that are not available at the Sunstone. I have lesions on my brain. I was unable to read the process earlier, and I apologize for that.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Anyone else? All right, well, no one else. Mr. Langton, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I have a couple of things. The road that's coming down, I think me and Jim, we talked about it a few minutes ago, the road that's coming off the bridge and returning to Avenue C. We need to get DOT to look at it and see if we can get a turn lane, some type of turn lane, because when they're pulling in that yellow stripe area right there, they can't, the residential, people at the residential can't get there to that left curve. And the cops pulling them over, giving them tickets for it. So I want our police department to do the job, but I also need to check into that and see if we can get that into a turning lane right there, so it'll be easy for residents to get to their homes. Yeah. You have to go all the way around MLK and come back around C just to get to their home. Yeah. So we'll check into that.
I'll get with Chief Harry and
oh, and I've been getting several calls about speed bumps. I really would like for staff to look into purchasing some speed bumps so that we can put, coming out that apartment complex in Lidsville, they're coming out flying. You know, we got kids walking down that area. And then I really want to actually start putting a couple of them down the residential roads in Lidsville first, and then we'll figure out where we can go from there. But I definitely need to get some type of survey or something, whatever it takes for us to try to get some of these speed bumps put throughout. I want to start with Lidsville, because right now that traffic is just zooming through the residential areas. And then we'll move forward from there if we can. That's it.
That's it. We're through with the citizens right now.
No, we can bring up Bay Street signs not down.
I thought we did.
We still got a lot of signs down. I've noticed.
Bay back up, right? I thought we put that back up.
There are some that are still down.
Both ends on Clifford and half the way.
We'll have John check it out. Make sure they are getting up like they should be. Yes, sir, Commissioner.
I can't remember what I had, Mayor.
I should have write it down. You didn't know me, huh? Does that mean you don't have anything? All right, Commissioner Lowry. Commissioner Hawk.
The only thing I wanted to bring up was I wanted to commend and thank the staff and the department heads for where we are today in relation to a Category 5 hurricane. I went and met with Mike for just a few minutes today about our budget and was informed that the city of Port St. Joe has spent virtually none of the insurance money that we've been given, even though we're still working and fighting for additional funding. And most cities cannot say that. Most cities are in desperate need of funding. They're hurting. But I think it's fair to say that a big part of the reason that we're as strong financially as we are today is because the department heads are holding the line on spending. And I just want to say thank you for that.
That is, sir?
That's it.
What I've got is I had another phone call, you know, and besides the place he's talking about turning left with a double yellow line and all where you can't turn, there's two other places in town that I've been reminded of constantly. One is on the highways. If you come in this way, you're not supposed to make a left-hand turn. If you're coming this way at the McDonald's, you're not supposed to make a left-hand turn. And a man called me just yesterday and said some lady at McDonald's almost run all over him. He said he had to hit his brakes hard as he could, and she wasn't supposed to be turning. So his question to me is, what can we do? Now, I know we had those things in the road nobody liked, but if that's the only way to keep people from turning in there, if we don't have a police officer sitting there giving them tickets, then I think we need to put those things back up to make people not be able to turn. Because if they're there, you can't run over, well, we can run over if we want to, they have before. But still, people don't pay no attention to those double yellow lines. I've been guilty of it myself sometimes. And then when I do it, I say, oh, I don't want a policeman close by. But we need to think about what we can do. I know people don't like, what they call it, John?
Delineators.
Yeah, delineators, and I don't like them. But if it's gonna maybe save us from having an accident, and it is against the law to do that. It is against the law to turn into Pony Highways, McDonald's, and right there where he's talking on Avenue C is illegal. So we need to do it. And all that came about whenever we went from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, or 1 lane. 2 lanes to 1 lane. And I just think we need to do something, and I would like for staff to look into it and just see what we want to do, poll the rest of the commissioners, whatever. But this one person said he could have been hurt real bad had he not slammed on his brakes. And I just need a motion to adjourn. I have one in a second. I have one, thank you.